Hi guys, Brian from Boas here. Barranquilla Boas are an awesome locality boa from Colombia and the latest locality that I added to my locality collection. Today I'm going to discuss the physical characteristics, natural history, and captive husbandry of these beautiful boas. If you're new to the channel, this is the place for information about all aspects of keeping and breeding boa constrictors in captivity, so be sure to subscribe if you want to learn all about these amazing animals. As I mentioned, these are the latest boas to add to my locality collection. I got a trio of them a few months ago. They're now 6 months old. They were born in late May. And they're just amazing boas. I really love these animals. They're quickly becoming one of my top favorites. In fact, if I was going to do my top 5 locality boa video again, I would probably have to add this to the top 5 list. I'm not sure which animal currently on the list it would replace though. And these came from my good buddy Michael Beach up in Oregon. He's a locality boa breeder that I highly recommend, and he's got some beautiful breeder Barranquilla boas. These are descended from, well, his breeders are from Legacy Reptiles, Joel and Orlando Diaz, and they got their breeding stock from Gus Renfro at not Cutting Edge, Rio Bravo Reptiles. So these are pure Colombian Barranquilla boas, just amazing animals. I'm going to do some close-up shots of my Barranquilla boas just so you get a close look at them. And this is my female, one of my females. You can see just beautiful, beautiful animals. They have very high contrast. You can see how well the saddles stand out from the background color. They have these beautiful shaped saddles. They're kind of a blocky saddle, but what I really like is they have these beautiful ovals or circles in between the saddles. You can see how well connected the saddles are. And then you can see this nice rusty red tail. Not quite as bright as a true red-tailed boa, but certainly beautiful in its own way. The head, you can see, is a little bit shorter than a true red tail, and the saddle count is higher. These animals have, around 20, low 20s as far as the number of saddles, so it's a higher saddle count than a true red-tailed boa. And another thing I like, you can see how calm this animal is. She's just kind of hanging out there. These are super chill boas. You can take them out. They don't try to get away like, some of the other boa imperators. But they're not too squeezy either, like a true red tail. Just a great boa. You can see they kind of have a kind of pudgy shape to them. They're a little bit thicker than some of the other locality boas. And this animal, as I said, is about 6 months old. She's close to 3 feet long, so they grow faster than the true red tails. But this is my beautiful female. Look at the dashes in the saddles. They really stand out. Really beautiful contrast and very colorful. So although these are not a true red-tailed boa, I think that these are every bit as beautiful as the nicest true red-tailed boas. So that was a close-up look at this female. I'll show you my other female and male in a few minutes. But first I wanted to say that these animals are from a city called Barranquilla in northern Colombia that's on the Caribbean coast. And one of the questions that people ask a lot are, well, are these true red tails? And the answer to that, the simple answer is no, they're not. These are a different species. They're called Boa imperator, which is known as the common boa. The true red-tailed boa is Boa constrictor. And so Boa imperator was, just a few years ago, a subspecies of boa constrictor. It was Boa constrictor imperator, and a few years ago it was elevated to a full species. The country of Colombia contains both Boa constrictor and Boa imperator, and generally it's recognized that the animals that come from west of the Andes Mountains are Boa imperator, and those from east of the Andes Mountains out toward the Amazon rainforest are Boa constrictor. And that being said, there are some forms of boa constrictor that show characteristics of both. And there's several types of boas from Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador, where the range of Boa imperator and Boa constrictor are coming together, that are really interesting because they have these characteristics of both, and they're really fascinating from an evolutionary perspective. So the thing about classification is it's somewhat arbitrary and artificial. I mean, so scientists are basically trying to fit animals into these arbitrary defined groups called species. However, if we're talking about the range of boa constrictors in the wild, and in this case by boa constrictor I mean the 3 species that were formerly classified as boa constrictor, this is a huge area encompassing all the way from northern Mexico down to Argentina and through most of South America. So it's a huge range, and there's lots and lots of local variants that are slightly different. So you have this continuous range of different types of boas, in this huge land area. So what constitutes a species versus a subspecies can be a little bit, tricky sometimes. And nature doesn't put animals in these nicely defined categories. If you look at these Barranquilla boas, I would argue that they have characteristics more similar to many boa constrictor, the true red tails, than they do to some of the boa imperators, such as many of the Central American localities and the island localities like the Hog Island. That being said, this is just why I find boa constrictor such a fascinating group of animals. And these animals that are right at the boundary of 2 different types of boas are particularly fascinating. Another group are the Venezuelan boas, like the Paraguanera, just great animals to work with and very fascinating from an evolutionary perspective. This is my other female, and she's another beautiful animal. She's actually a little bit more colorful than the other female. She's got this beautiful peachy, pinky coral color that's actually been developing since I've had her only in the last few months. Her markings, you can see they're not quite as contrasty as the first female, but the color is just beautiful. You can see her head has a lot of that nice color as well. And then looking at her tail, the beautiful rusty red color, which is why I think when people argue about whether it's a true red tail or not, I think that's just a kind of a ridiculous argument. Because although true red tails are obviously boa constrictor, many of the non-boa constrictor, the boa imperators, do have quite a bit of red in their tail. So we should really refer to them by the scientific name and the locality, and not argue about whether something is or is not a red-tailed boa. So I zoomed in a little bit just so you can get a closer look at just how pretty this animal is. And you can also see she's just so chill. She just hangs out there. These are great animals to take out and handle because they just kind of hang out with you. They wrap, firmly, but they don't cut off the circulation like a true red tail. And they're super chill. They don't try to get away either. So not just a beautiful boa to look at, but a great pet animal that's really a joy to handle and to work with. Last and certainly not least, we have my male. You can see this guy. He's got the high contrast going on. I love how the bars, the dashes in the saddle kind of really stand out. And this guy maybe a little less colorful than the females, but just a beautiful boa. Looking forward to watching these guys develop. As I said, they're only about 6 months old now, and they've already started to brighten up as far as their color. But what immediately impressed me about these guys when I got them was just the amount of contrast they have. It's just exceptional rather, and they're just beautiful, beautiful animals. Size-wise, the Barranquilla boas are kind of a mid-sized boa, with most adults in the 5 to 7 foot range. So they can be kept in a 4-foot snake cage, or even a large tub, like these vision tubs, for all but the largest adults. Husbandry-wise, they're very straightforward. Just like other Colombian boas, they're super easy to care for, and they're a really good boa for beginners. I'm keeping these 6-month-old babies in a rack system with a 28-quart Sterilite tub. I have them on a bedding of coconut husk with a couple hiding places, and I maintain a high humidity just by spraying down the coconut husk several times a week. And they've been doing really well. No issues getting them to eat frozen thawed rodents. Just a great, very undemanding boa. I also, as I mentioned, I love how calm they are and how enjoyable it is to handle these. So great boa, both from the pet perspective as well as for the people that really enjoy locality boas and understanding their biology. Unfortunately, pure Colombian locality boas have become harder to find in the hobby. They're a lot rarer than they were a few decades ago because a lot of them have been crossed into morph projects. However, there is a select group of breeders that are working with these pure Barranquilla Boas. I mentioned Michael Beach, and Vin Russo is another well-respected breeder that works with these beauties. I should also say that the personality of Colombian Boas is in general pretty similar. I also have some Coops Pastel Colombian Boas. That's a pure Colombian line that's been selectively bred for the pastel colors. And I found that the personality of both of these forms of Colombian Boa is very desirable, very laid back and chill and just a joy to handle. So if you want a pet quality boa, especially for a first-time boa, I would highly recommend you look into getting a Colombian boa, even one that's not pure, such as many of the normal boas that you see for sale on Morph Market. So that's a little bit about the Barranquilla Colombia Locality Boa, and if you're looking for a beautiful, fascinating Locality Boa that's a joy to work with, this might be the boa for you. I hope this video was helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot me a line. Thanks for watching and enjoy your boas.